Okay. Good morning, world. How are we today? Today is actually Friday, and I know it's confusing if anyone is actually like watching watching my videos, one after the other. Did make a post about the fact that the family schedule has changed with school holidays, summer holidays here, and things like that. And also, I have been having some issues with internet connection. Sometimes that happens this time of the year here, purely even just because there's a lot more people in the area, and it's like the phone towers or something get like, too many people using their network, and so there's just like bad reception. Anyway, our topic this morning is multiculturalism. Does it work? Okay, look, I shouldn't laugh. This is a serious topic, actually. And I have actually thought about this quite a lot in my life. Where it seems to me, and I sort of feel like I became aware of this question, aware of this issue from a young age. Obviously living in a country that is very multicultural, which to my understanding, most countries are now. But it's always something that you hear about, isn't it? That there is upset between groups towards each other. And there's also, there's a whole lot of different belief systems. There's a whole lot of different ways of life, cultural, traditional things that are different. And then you've got sort of people who feel that they are very true blue Aussie, born and bred for generations, who kind of have strong opinions about how everyone should be living and being here in Australia, taking offence to perhaps people who are wearing particular items of clothing or headwear, taking offence perhaps to people who are speaking in their family's language, from their original country. And it's not like multiculturalism means, oh, you just look different but we sound the same, but we are the same. Multiculturalism means that it could really be a family who came to Australia last week that we're talking about. So, there's different levels, isn't there, of multiculturalism. And then even to do with white Australians who, feel very entitled to their way of life here in Australia. Again, there's a difference between them and, the original First Nations people, the Indigenous people, the Aboriginal people, So, and if you really want to get technical, 45,000 years ago, approximately, according to science, they came here from a different place as well, you know. So, I mean, yeah, multiculturalism doesn't work. I don't think that Australia is necessarily the only place where there is still racism, you know, and not just from white people towards people of other nationalities, origins. You know, there's racism between all different nationalities, isn't there? There are strong beliefs, dogmas that people can hold about different nationalities or different religious groups. You know, like, obviously there are particular negative things that are attributed to, you know, I'm just going to say, like, maybe probably each different religion and probably each different nationality, you know, and so of course there's going to be issues in society, in any country, and I'm not saying that multiculturalism is a bad thing, but I wonder if it was like the best idea. I wonder if it was supposed to be like that, because even when you go back to, you know, indigenous cultures, tribes and things like that, what happens when people from a different tribe come up to this different tribe, you know, different clans coming into contact with each other? Normally it's war. Normally there are fights. Normally they don't understand each other, or they're, you know, different ways of doing things. I mean, that's looking back, isn't it? You know, in time, and yeah, sort of like the you know, even indigenous or tribal groups that are discovered around the world still to today. You know, like the ones that were sort of never interfered with in the Amazon and things like that. What happens when they come across a white person, or, you know, some person that they've never seen before, wearing clothes and, you know, got matches and all these sorts of things? They are like petrified of you, and you know, you could even kill them with your diseases, let alone, you know, what risks you pose to them with your you know, magical tools and whatnot, you know, and so, like, it kind of comes down to natural instinct, survival instinct. You know, when people are different to each other, you get defensive, you get protective of your people, of your family. You know, the other people, they are posing a threat to you, aren't they? You know, I'm just trying to black and white lay out how it really is, though, isn't it? You know, like, that's what it obviously stems from. Even today in Western society, Western culture, Western countries, you know, everywhere around the world today, that where there's multiculturalism, even where there's tourism, you know, there are issues between cultures, there are issues between religious beliefs, there are issues between just people looking different to each other, and the concern or the uncertainty that like brings up in people. Like, I even know, you know, in Australia as well, to my understanding, based on things that I had seen in news and conversations that I've had, been witness to, there had been an ongoing problem for years to do with a particular ethnic group that was, it seemed like, on the rise, migrating to Australia, and that they're like teenagers, they're kids, were like being very involved in criminal activity, like robbings and things like that, but like also using like weapons, not guns, but other weapons. And you know, I think there is also a level of concern that kids who get into criminal situations like that, who come from, you know, migrant families, you know, trying to, you know, settle into the country and whatnot, don't necessarily either get punished accordingly. How, like, say, a white kid in Australia, born and bred here, would be punished necessarily. Maybe there are different outcomes, because perhaps the legal system, you know, doesn't want to, like, maybe they give more chances, maybe, to families that are just settling into Australia, or who are from, you know, like, who are migrants and things like that. Anyway, I know that there was a lot of fear about particular areas. I'm just talking about in Victoria as well. Particular areas where it seemed more prevalent that these kids were committing these crimes and terrorizing and things like that. And it just, you know, that's just one example of a reason why a stigma about a whole group of people can occur, you know, and mistrust towards that group, you know. And I mean, I can tell you now, if I saw a teenage boy of that nationality looking, you know, approach me in a way that was not calm, like, you know, maybe it's just even my perception that makes me feel like it, you know, that kid was approaching me too fast, or, you know, why would he be approaching me? You know, maybe I would jump to conclusions too, you know, just because of the stories that I've heard, you know, and I know that's terrible, but that's sort of the facts of life, isn't it? That's sort of reality, isn't it? You know, like, and it's sort of the same way that, like, when you think about it, you know, black people who go to places where there has been, you know, like KKK style behaviours and groups and belief systems and all that sort of stuff. Well, how do the black people behave? Like, of course they are fearful. Of course they're very nervous. Of course they are expecting some sort of altercation. You know, it's just facts of life. It's just reality. You know, and so that's just, you know, a couple of examples of how mixing of different religious beliefs, different cultures, different nationalities, it seems sort of like a natural response a human, like a animal instinct, like a survival instinct, however you want to describe it. It seems sort of natural that there would be distrust, that there would be issues, that there would be arguments about things. Like even in Australia, and I've heard of in other places around the world too. I mean, there are even things that get brought, over from other people's cultures or their belief systems, like that we don't agree with, right? Like as a country, even like our laws and our government doesn't agree with, right? Like, so you've got sort of things like, honor killings and, like where I think that one is to do with, if a woman or a daughter is perceived to have brought shame to her father and the family, basically that they feel that they have a right to kill them, I mean, stuff like that, as a country, we obviously don't support, but even the government doesn't support it, but then is that like racist because we don't, support their culture's way of going about things, like how they would do it in their country, you know what I mean? Like, maybe, I don't know if that was a bad example, but I'm just saying that there are, from small differences, from types of food you like to eat that might even offend somebody because of the smell or the look or what it consists of, to big, huge differences that are, offensive to people's sense of right and wrong, morals and all that sort of stuff, to other things that's just to do with clothing and, because of, the perceived appearance of what a terrorist looks like or whatever like that, throughout the years, it causing a lot of concern about, how, if you live in Australia or if you're in Australia, how you are and are not allowed to dress. Is it racist to say that, a woman who wants to wear a, full head burqa and things is like that she shouldn't be allowed to wear that in Australia, because it causes fear, about security and safety and things like that, to not be able to see people's face, or that they could be hiding something under it that could be very dangerous to people. Is that racist? Obviously that topic has been a big topic in our country for quite a while. We've even had, politician sort of making a bit of a clown show about that in our parliament. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things, isn't there, that are, issues for people, because of the differences that it is between us in a multicultural society. And I kind of think that it's like natural, like that it's like natural human behavior, because I think maybe it comes back down to, like survival instincts and things. And, you know, I know, like, to be not racist and stuff, you're supposed to basically, you know, push all that to the side, I guess, and, you know, live your life. Basically, you know, you would have to like, tell yourself off if you had thoughts like that. Like if you jump to conclusions about people based on their nationality, you know, their origin, their religion, their beliefs, what they're wearing, all that sort of stuff, right? So does it work? You know, I mean, I know in a perfect world, I guess, you know, people from all different walks of life, all different places of the world, can live together in harmony, in peace, you know. Of course, it sounds great. And I believe there's also a lot of, you know, a lot of things that we can learn off of each other. You know, I think every single person has value, every single person, you know, also has a right to live, you know, how they, you know, that feels good to them, you know, and right for them. And I don't think that, you know, I mean, if people come to Australia from, you know, wherever, I don't think that it's like, okay, now you have to slap on some board shorts and a singlet and some thongs and become a surfer and cook barbecues and that's your culture now. You have to adopt that culture and you have to like completely discard anything that you grew up with, anything that you knew beforehand. I'm not saying that. I'm trying to analyze here what the problem is, you know, because obviously there's a problem, isn't there? Obviously there's a problem. Stuff like this happens all over the place, not just Australia. And I don't know how we could go really about fixing it. You know, I know they're talking about, you know, censoring speech. You know, we've already got a degree of anti-Semitism laws in this country, and things that you can't display, things that you can't do with your body. Yeah, things you can't say already. But, you know, they're looking to bring in more laws like that, more things that would be covered under that. And, you know, while I totally agree that, you know, people need a degree of, you know, safety arrangements for them, you know, and I understand as well that certain speech, certain things can be, you know, inciting violence and violent acts. You know, we don't want that, do we? But at the same time, yes, you do have to find a balance of censoring because otherwise, you know, before you know it, it's like you can't say anything to anyone because people get offended. I mean, it's not to do with, you know, particular cultures or religions, but I mean, even to do with the, you know, LGBTQ plus community. That's sort of already been a thing for several years, hasn't it? You know, where you have to be extremely careful about what you say, and even sort of to the extent of like that you have to ask people what their pronouns are, or ask people how they would like to be referred to, and things, and respect that and everything, even if it's something that makes you, uncomfortable or whatever. Like, I mean, look, this might be an unpopular opinion, and, but, I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not comfortable with a man dressed up as a woman going into a woman's public toilet when my daughters are. I'm just not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with a teacher identifying as a cat and making various different cat sounds at the students, and expecting children to respond accordingly. Not comfortable with that. To me, it's mental health issues, and I don't think it's healthy for children to be taught that that's okay and that's normal, because, I mean, at what point, at what point did like the science of brains leave the conversation, and leave the room? Because to me, a lot can be explained by psychology, and I think it's a dangerous thing to be encouraging children to think that maybe they are an animal stuck in their body, or the wrong gender stuck in their body. And I mean, to be fair, I feel very much like it is something that has been somehow indoctrinated on children, and encouraged in children for clout or something like that, for parents. Because, I mean, I'm sorry, but like, were people thinking that they were cats and other things 50 years ago, you know? Or is it something that's just sort of like trendy now, and it makes you and your kids stand out in a crowd, you know? It's a little bit strange. But again, that's just another example of how, there can be differences between people in a society, can't there? And, sometimes to have cohesion in a community, everybody sort of needs to be more similar, and be more of the same beliefs, of the same way of doing things, of the same thinking, of the same language, for cohesion, for the community to work together, to be like tight knit, because you need a community to be tight knit, to like help each other out and not do harm to each other, and all of that sort of stuff. There's a whole science behind that, sociology, and yeah, I mean, it's just like, again, with the Amish, that we talked about several videos ago. That's why they don't wear makeup and dye their hair, and all the women have to have very similar style clothes, and the men have to have very similar style clothes, and so no one is better than each other. And, to be also similar like that is cohesion, is like teamwork, tight knit. And that's why communities like that are pretty darn successful, And I just think that, maybe in terms of multicultural countries, I mean, maybe it ought to be like, if you want to live in this country, this is the language that you have to speak. This is how we go about life here. And this is what's accepted and what's not accepted. These are our values, our moral system and whatnot. And if you want to migrate to this country, if you want to live in this country, this is sort of how you have to be. And if you want to live in this country, this is the language, this is the morals, this is the do you know what I mean? And like, so maybe it is more like that, maybe it should be more like that, I don't know. But then, you're sort of taking away people's, what do you do about religion in that situation? I understand as well a lot of people migrate because they are fleeing different issues happening in their country of origin, wars and things like that, they're migrating for a better life. I understand that too. And then, it's not really fair for them to have to give up everything that they've ever known, like, of their identity, in exchange for safety in a country. I mean, that's not really fair either, is it? So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, obviously, surely there are experts that the government, interacts with to get ideas and things, probably, in regards to psychology and sociology and all that sort of stuff, social sciences, don't think that, just upping what the criminal punishment would be, or, ending free speech. I don't think that's necessarily the answer. It's a tough one, isn't it? Because, even as the world goes on as well, like we've talked about, we're all a lot more mixed racially as well, aren't we? So that's also part of the conversation. You can be born and bred in Australia, but you've got, European origin in your family. And a lot of traditions and beliefs and things like that can carry through, can't they? Generations even. And that's just one example. I mean, you could have African descent, you could have, whatever. But, you and your parents could have been born in this country. It doesn't mean that you should turn your back on your origin, on your family's background. I don't know. It's a touchy subject. It's a very complex subject. It's just, obviously, it's part of the conversation though, isn't it? This isn't just about whether or not there are religious, like, speakers or leaders out there radicalizing people. you know, it isn't as simple as there just being some people who have a few screws loose, and you know, we've got to punish them and then done and dusted. You know, like, obviously there's issues, and it's not just in Australia, it's kind of all over the world. And you know, the crux of the problem is different people, different cultures, different religions living side by side, being the problem. And what do we do about it? You know, so, you know, that's the conversation today. And really, it's going to be an ongoing conversation for, again, not just Australia, but around the world, you know, for quite some time, isn't it? Because it's not like what's just happened at Bondi is the only thing that's happened, or the only time anything like that is going to happen. You know, I mean, let's be real. And yeah, so some real deep thought has to be put into what we're all going to be doing about this. And you know, more conversations, more looking at even the science of things, you know, social science. Anyway, that is my thoughts this morning. I hope I didn't bang on for too long. You all have a good day. I apologize again about what has been happening with my uploading of videos. But I will keep making videos. I will keep posting videos as often as I can. You know, and yeah, I'll see you all in another video on Monday. Bye.